Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. And to sum up Monday Night Raw tonight, this is how I felt Monday Night Raw was tonight. Here we go. There you go. Pretty much how Monday Night Raw was summed up tonight. Absolutely fucking boring show it was. Just god-awful. Every single Monday, Monday Night Raw continues to get worse and worse and worse. It's like Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard, they want to top the show going into next week with how bad they could fucking make it. How much more fucking worse can they make that week's show than the show that we saw last week? Fucking awful. This show is one of the worst wrestling shows on cable fucking television. Awful. So what do we see on the show tonight? We had tomatoes. We saw tomatoes were being thrown by Damian Priest, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston. They were throwing tomatoes at Elias, Jackson Ryker, The Miz, and John Morrison. I'm like, what the fuck? This is good, right? This is good in Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard's eyes. Awful. Absolutely awful. That whole segment was fucking embarrassing, to say the least. And we had a musical performance by them. By Elias, The Miz, John Morrison. That was awful as well. And we had a water bucket being thrown by Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose at Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler was doused in water. Nia Jax came running over and slipped on the water. Great. So it's tomatoes, buckets, water buckets, and an awful performance. My God, this show sucks. This show absolutely fucking sucks. Let's jump right into the review. Let's review this piece of shit show. So, Monday Night Raw opened up with a 2-on-1 handicap match. T-Bar and Mace versus Braun Strowman. And I'm like, every single week, I feel we're getting 2-on-1 handicap matches. What, we're going to have a 2-on-1 handicap match next week? How original. It's like they're beating this stipulation, having a 2-on-1 handicap match into the fucking ground. It's getting old. Enough with this. So we had T-Bar and Mace. I don't know why WWE is still calling them T-Bar and Mace. Mace should be Dio Madden, and T-Bar should be Dominic Dijakovic. I don't know why WWE won't, have them go back to using their original names. I'm like, they're unmasked. They were unmasked last week. Don't you think, with them being unmasked, that they should go back into using their original names? Have Mace as Dio Madden and T-Bar as Dominic Dijakovic? They don't do it. They didn't do it. But they had face paint on. They had face paint on them. So we saw Drew McIntyre backstage, and he was shown warming up. Braun Strowman ended up approaching Drew McIntyre. Strowman and McIntyre were arguing over last week because Strowman ended up taking credit for saving McIntyre's career last week. Strowman ended up telling McIntyre to follow his lead. So McIntyre ended up saying that Strowman sometimes speaks before he thinks. So Strowman ended up telling McIntyre that he's going out there to beat Mace and T-Bar by himself. to prove a point. So then Strowman ended up heading out to the ring. And Strowman, when he was in the ring, he ended up snatching the mic from Mike Rome. He ended up saying, "No, this is no longer a tag team match. It's a 2-on-1 handicap match. Something McIntyre couldn't get done last week. But he will right now." So, match ended up started, bell rang, Strowman ended up taking T-Bar into the corner, beating him down. T-Bar then ended up fighting back, and Strowman was beating T-Bar around the ring, delivered some splashes in the corner to T-Bar. Mace ended up decking Strowman from behind and started beating Strowman into the corner. So Strowman ended up missing the clothesline and then got dropped by a heel kick from Mace. So we had Braun Strowman win the match by disqualification because Mace and T-Bar were just double teaming on Braun Strowman, beating him down. So post-match, Mace and T-Bar were still being down on Strowman. And then out came McIntyre. So McIntyre ended up dropping T-Bar. He got into the ring. He started unloading on Mace. Strowman ended up coming in, and McIntyre ended up clotheslining Mace out to the floor. Strowman ended up knocking T-Bar to the floor. So this went from a 2-on-1 handicap match to a tag team match. Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre versus T-Bar and Mace. This was meh, in my opinion. This was awful. The match ended in a countout. So T-Bar and Mace won the match by countout because we had Strowman end up going outside. He ended up taking out Mace. McIntyre ended up sending T-Bar into the announce table. Strowman and McIntyre were colliding at ringside. So McIntyre tried to make it back to the ring, and then the referee ended up counting to 10. And so there you go. T-Bar and Mace win by countout. Whatever. So after post-match, Strowman ended up coming into the ring. He ended up hitting McIntyre with the running power slam. Strowman ended up yelling at McIntyre about trying to help him. And so that was that. But this was awful. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Adnan Virk on commentary. When Strowman was doing his run around the ring with shoulder tackles, he was like, "Oh, we're going to need a bigger boat." So yeah, he was quoting Jaws. Adnan Virk, I'm sorry. He is terrible on commentary. He should go back to doing the MLB Network, whatever he does on there. I mean, he is awful on commentary. And from what I heard, he was trending on Twitter. He was trending on Twitter for the wrong reasons. But, yeah, Adnan Virk. He's awful on commentary. He is not going to last long on commentary. You know, it makes me miss hearing Samoa Joe on commentary. They got rid of Samoa Joe for Adnan Virk. Unbelievable. Then we had Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre ended up approaching Adam Pearce backstage. McIntyre said to Pearce that he wants Braun Strowman in a match tonight. So Adam Pearce ended up saying that he can do that. So McIntyre was shown walking off. So there you go. We had Braun Strowman versus Drew McIntyre, which was the main event of Monday Night Raw tonight. We went to Miz TV. Here we go with this awful segment. This was. Miz was out there with The Miz and John Morrison, and hello, I am boringness. And you all know who I'm talking about. He's with Jackson Riker, Elias. So they were in the ring. Miz ended up bragging about the success of his WWE 24 documentary, which aired last night, which I didn't get to see yet. And then he promotes a new episode of Miz and Mrs. I'm like, what is the Miz going to do every single week? Come out on Monday Night Raw to promote Miz and Mrs. just for the show to get ratings? That's what they're possibly going to make Miz do every single week until the finale of the Miz and Mrs. episode airs. Watch. That's what they're going to do. So every week, we're going to have the Miz coming out saying, oh, please watch Miz and Mrs. after Monday Night Raw. Please. So the Miz ended up telling Elias to introduce him and Jackson Riker. Elias ended up doing it. He's like, hello, I am Elias. You know, his whole stale shit that he does. So then John Morrison ended up introducing himself. Miz ended up saying that they are all here in honor of Bad Bunny selling out his tour in minutes. I'm like, why are they still talking about Bad Bunny? I thought this was it after the Miz and Morrison ended up having a match with Bad Bunny and Damian Priest at WrestleMania. So why are they continuing this? So Morrison ended up congratulating Bad Bunny. Miz ended up going on and he ended up saying that he takes full credit for the tour selling out because of their star power rubbing off on him at WrestleMania. So they want to give Bad Bunny something. So they do an unplugged version of Hey Hey Ho Ho. This was awful. This was god awful. Made my ears bleed just listening to this performance from them. We had the Miz, Morrison, and Jackson Riker rapping. This was god awful. So we had the lights go out in the Thunderdome, and then out came Damian Priest. Damian Priest got on the mic, and we had the New Day, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods coming out. So Priest ended up saying to them that they have a surprise. He was saying it to Miz, Morrison, Elias, and Jackson Riker. So Xavier Woods was shown carrying a large guitar case down to the ring. And in that guitar case were tomatoes. So the guitar case was full of tomatoes. Damian Priest and Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston were just throwing the tomatoes at Elias, Jackson Riker, Miz, and Morrison. And they were just throwing it at them. Morrison slipping on tomatoes. This was so fucking awful. Oh my god. Yeah, we had them throwing tomatoes. Oh, how funny. Did you all laugh at that? I know I didn't. I know you guys probably didn't laugh at that either. But Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard are like, man, this is some good shit. No, it ain't. Oh, man. Awful. This was embarrassing. This whole segment was embarrassing. Then we had Elias, Jackson Riker, and The Miz versus Damian Priest and The New Day. Awful. God awful. We had Xavier Woods end up starting the match off with Elias. Elias turned it around in the corner, started delivering some chops, and we had Jackson Riker end up coming in. He ended up taking over, and then we had Elias do a cheap shot from the apron to Xavier Woods. The referee was distracted. So Riker ended up pinning Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods ended up kicking out of one. Riker kept control of the match. Elias ended up coming in again, and Elias ended up dropping Woods with an uppercut in the middle of the ring. So Xavier Woods came back and leveled Elias with a running elbow. Went for the cover, which Elias ended up kicking out at 2. So at the end of the match, we had the New Day and Damian Priest win the match, where Xavier Woods ended up rolling up Jackson Riker. There you go. New Day and Damian Priest end up win the match. Overall, match was terrible. And then we see Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville was walking backstage. I'm like, why is Sonya Deville on Monday Night Raw when she is on SmackDown? So she walks backstage and she opens the door. And Charlotte ends up coming in. And I'm like, I knew it. I'm like, oh yeah, Charlotte's going to be here tonight. She had that suspension for beating up the referee last week after the main event of Monday Night Raw. I'm like, wow, a 1-week suspension. Oh, man. Sonya Deville and Charlotte were walking together as Monday Night Raw went to commercial. So you have Sonya Deville on Monday Night Raw tonight. So she comes to Monday Night Raw handling business, and there's no explanation. There was no explanation as to why Sonya Deville is there. Why is she on Raw when she is on SmackDown? So when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Sonya Deville, and she was in the ring. She ended up introducing Charlotte. Charlotte came out. So we had the referee, who was refereeing the match last week. You know, Charlotte and Asuka. The referee was, of course, Eddie Orengo. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. So Orengo was in the ring. Sonya Deville ended up introducing him. She ended up saying that he was the referee for the match that unfortunately ended in a bad way last week. Of course, because Rhea Ripley was at ringside, she caused a distraction. So Sonya Deville ended up talking about Charlotte being suspended indefinitely, and also the fine. Of course, the fine was $100,000. And she ended up saying that Adam Pearce's decision was a bit rushed, and that she doesn't think Charlotte got a chance to give her side of the story. So Sonya Deville ended up telling Charlotte to explain her side of the story. So Charlotte ended up thanking Sonya Deville, and she ended up admitting the error of her ways. So Charlotte then apologized to management and also the WWE Universe. And she also, most importantly, apologized to Eddie Orengo for her childish ways of her beating him up last week. So Charlotte ended up saying that she doesn't understand what happened, and instinct just took over. She ended up saying that she's here tonight to take the high road and admit her wrongs. She ended up apologizing to Eddie Orengo for putting her hands on him and apologizing for manhandling him last week. So Eddie then ended up apologizing, and he ended up saying that he didn't see Rhea Ripley interfere. And if he did see it, then Charlotte would have won. So Sonya Deville ended up saying that Charlotte has already paid her fine. Charlotte already paid the $100,000. And that she's happy to announce that the suspension has been lifted. Oh joy. Oh joy. So Sonya Deville ended up announcing that Charlotte will also return to action. And Orengo will be the referee in her match. So Charlotte ended up interrupting, and she ended up pointing to how Eddie just admitted that last week was his mistake. So Charlotte ended up demanding an apology from Orango. And he wasn't thrilled. You could tell the look on his face that he wasn't thrilled. So that was that. So Charlotte and Sonya Deville end up stopping backstage at Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce was, of course, in the gorilla position. Adam Pearce was upset. And he ended up asking, what the hell was that just now? Sonya Deville ended up telling Adam Pearce that it was a last minute thing. And that she tried to find Adam Pearce. She ended up apologizing. So Adam Pearce ended up saying that he might accept Sonya Deville's apology if he actually believed it. So that was how the segment ended. So, but everything with Charlotte, whatever. I don't care. So then we saw Adam Pearce when Monday Night Raw came back from commercial. He was on the phone. He was talking about Sonya Deville having too much power. So Braun Strowman ended up walking in. Strowman ended up pointing out to Adam Pearce about how Orton lost the triple threat match a few weeks back. Of course, which McIntyre ended up winning. So Strowman ended up telling Adam Pearce that he wants to be put into the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania Backlash if he beats McIntyre later on tonight. So Strowman ended up asking if Adam Pearce needs to check with Sonya Deville first. So then Adam Pearce ended up making it official. So that was that. So if Strowman ends up winning, he gets put into the WWE Championship match at Backlash. So it will become a triple threat. So it'll be Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley. The triple threat at WrestleMania Backlash. If Strowman ended up winning later on tonight. So then we had Sheamus in the ring. Sheamus ended up saying that beatdown is proof that the Celtic Warrior is back and better than ever, because they showed a video package of when Humberto Carrillo ended up coming out to answer Sheamus's open challenge for the United States Championship, but Sheamus ended up just, beating him down, and the match never took place because of that. So Sheamus ended up going on about how he's being dominant and what he proved against Humberto Carrillo last week. Sheamus ended up saying that he's doing it again tonight. So if you like a front row seat at your own funeral, come out and realize that the United States Championship will not be on the line. So once again, Humberto Carrillo ends up coming out. Sheamus ends up asking Humberto if he's serious or out of his mind. He's like, "Are you loco, ese?" So Sheamus ended up saying that Humberto had his opportunity and that he's not going to fight him. So Sheamus ended up attacking Humberto Carrillo out of nowhere, started beating him down. Humberto Carrillo ended up coming back and attacking Sheamus. He ends up sending Sheamus out to the floor, ends up drop kicking him off the apron, which he did it twice. Humberto Carrillo ended up nailing the suicide dive to send Sheamus over the announce table. So that was that. But didn't we see this last week? I'm like, oh, I missed when Sheamus was beating the hell out of Humberto Carrillo last week. Same shit. So we saw Kevin Patrick. He ended up stopping MVP and Bobby Lashley backstage. He was asking them about the possible change in the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania Backlash. So MVP ended up interrupting, and he ended up saying that Kevin Patrick likes dealing in hypotheticals, as nothing has been changed yet. MVP won, and he ended up saying that he and Bobby Lashley have some grievances to go public with. So MVP was taunting Kevin Patrick, and MVP and Bobby Lashley end up walking off, and that was that. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had Sarah Schreiber. She was interviewing Rhea Ripley. Sarah Schreiber ended up asking Rhea Ripley about Charlotte's return. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that Charlotte's apologies never mean anything, and that she was glad to see Charlotte get fined $100,000. She ended up saying that she's glad Charlotte is back and that she hopes one day their paths cross. But Rhea ended up saying that she's focused on the 6-woman tag team match later on in the night. So she ended up saying that while Charlotte is off playing with the referees, she will be busy remaining the Raw Women's Champion. So that was that. So then we had Bobby Lashley and MVP. They end up coming out. So we had Lashley end up recalling the big WrestleMania win over how he defeated McIntyre and how he commanded respect after the match. He ended up saying that the respect he received from the crowd after not having them for a year felt great. Lashley ended up going on, he ended up comparing McIntyre to a piece of gum on the bottom of his shoe. Lashley ended up mentioning how he will defeat McIntyre again at WrestleMania Backlash. But he was like, but now it might be a triple threat. So MVP ended up wondering why WWE would treat their champion like this. He ended up saying any decision must be ran by them first, or it's intentionally disrespectful. MVP ended up saying that it's disgusting and that it's not fair and unacceptable that Bobby Lashley would be able to lose the WWE Championship without getting beat at WrestleMania Backlash. Lashley ended up saying that McIntyre and Strowman both know he can take them in a one-on-one contest at any time. Lashley then went on to say that he's going to come out during the main event for a closer look on his investment. Lashley ended up saying that after chasing the WWE Championship for 16 years, he will leave WrestleMania Backlash with the WWE Championship. MVP ended up saying that Lashley has spoken. And that was that. So then we saw Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle was riding around on his scooter backstage. He was riding around Kevin Patrick. Matt Riddle ended up saying to Kevin Patrick that it feels awesome over how he defeated Randy Orton last week. He ended up saying that, defeating Randy Orton last week was like riding in the clouds. Matt Riddle went on to say that Randy Orton is a legend. He's an apex predator, which Matt Riddle ended up saying that he still doesn't know what is. Matt Riddle ended up going on about Randy Orton. Orton ended up appearing. And Orton ended up saying that he doesn't know what planet Matt Riddle is from. Orton went on to say that him and Matt Riddle have nothing in common. So Matt Riddle kept interrupting Randy Orton, and he didn't like that. Orton ended up admitting that he underestimated Matt Riddle last week, and that he's planned to teach him a lesson in respect. And Matt Riddle ended up saying that he ended up sort of earning Orton's respect. So Orton ended up bringing up how Matt Riddle suggested RK Bro would be their tag team name if they ever teamed up. So Orton ended up saying that he hates to admit it, but the RK Bro name is kind of catchy. So Orton ended up asking Matt Riddle what he thinks about giving it a try tonight. So Matt Riddle, he was naming some ideas. He was like, how about we have a matching snake skin Speedos? Or something like that Matt Riddle was saying. So Orton was like, let's see let's first see how things go, and then maybe we'll have a chat. So that was that, and Matt Riddle looked all excited. So that was that. So Randy Orton and Matt Riddle end up teaming up tonight, and they end up taking on Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. So when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, and Reginald. And they were talking. Nia Jax ended up ranting about Charlotte's return. And she ended up saying that Charlotte is a spoiled brat that WWE enables. Well, Nia Jax is not wrong about that. She's right. She's all right about Charlotte. We all know it. WWE enables Charlotte. And they only treat her like that is because she's a Flair. So Shayna Baszler ended up interrupting, and she ended up saying, no more distractions. No Charlotte, no Dana Brooke, no Mandy Rose, and even Reginald. So Shayna Baszler ended up pointing out how Reginald's distraction led to Nia losing. Nia ended up saying that it was Shayna's fault. So Shayna Baszler ended up walking off, and she ended up telling them, no more distractions. So we had a crew member end up delivering flowers to Nia Jax. Nia Jax ended up thinking that the flowers were from Reginald, but no, they weren't from Reginald. They were from Angel Garza. So Angel Garza walked up to Nia Jax, and he ended up telling Nia that the flowers were from him. So Reginald, you could tell that he wasn't impressed about that. So Angel Garza ended up saying to Nia Jax that he sent the flowers because she is beautiful. So Angel Garza then kissed Nia Jax's hand, and he wished her good luck. So Nia Jax and Reginald were walking. Nia Jax walked by Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. She ended up throwing the flowers at Mandy Rose, telling her to put them in water. She was like, put these in water, bitch. So that was that. So then we had MVP. He ended up walking up on Braun Strowman, and he wanted to talk to Strowman. So MVP and Strowman had some words. MVP ended up going on to Strowman about how Bobby Lashley isn't happy that he is trying to get into the title match at WrestleMania Backlash. That Strowman is trying to get into the title match. Strowman ended up saying to MVP that Bobby Lashley can bring his own messages to him. So he ended up saying, but MVP can't tell him that there's nothing they can do to stop him from winning the WWE Championship at WrestleMania Backlash after he beats McIntyre. So Strowman was taunting MVP, and then he walked off, and that was that. And then we had Randy Orton and Matt Riddle versus Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. Once again, Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, WWE is just putting them back to being jobbers. Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander should be in catering after the whole breakup of them being in the Hurt Business. So we had Randy Orton end up coming out first, and then came Matt Riddle. So the match started off with Matt Riddle and Cedric Alexander. Riddle ended up doing a takedown and a gut wrench throw to Cedric Alexander. Matt Riddle delivered the Bro Mission from behind to Cedric. Cedric then ended up taking Matt Riddle and his leg out. Shelton ended up coming in, started mounting Matt Riddle with strikes, and Shelton delivered a counter to Matt Riddle's knee, which led to Matt Riddle clutching his leg and screaming. So at the end of the match, we had Cedric end up flying off the top, and it allowed Randy Orton to drop Cedric with the RKO in midair. Shelton ended up attacking, but Orton ended up sending him to the apron. So Orton then dropped Shelton with the draping DDT. He tagged in Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle went to the top, and Matt Riddle ended up delivering the floating bro on Shelton Benjamin. So there you go. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle end up winning the match. So overall, just a very meh match. And then we had Asuka, Lana, and Naomi versus Rhea Ripley, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler. Who cares? Who cares? The only thing about this match was Dana Brooke and Manny Rose, they had a water bucket. And they threw the water bucket at Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler was doused in water. Nia Jax ended up running over and slipped on the water. But Rhea Ripley, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler end up winning the match, where we had Nia Jax come in, delivered the running leg drop to Lana. So there you go. Ripley, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler end up winning. Who cares? So then we saw Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose backstage. They were laughing at what happened with Nia Jax by slipping on the water. Sonya Deville ended up walking up to the both of them, and Sonya Deville ended up saying that they should be ashamed. One, for getting involved in the match that they weren't in, and for how they treated Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. So Sonya Deville was threatening to get physical with Mandy Rose, because they were having some words because of their history that they had. So Sonya Deville ended up saying to Mandy Rose that you're going to be in the match and you're going to be facing Charlotte. So Sonya Deville ended up saying that her match with Charlotte, that Mandy Rose's match with Charlotte, was next up. And that was that. Sonya Deville ended up walking off. And then we had Alexa's Playground. Alexa Bliss was on her swing, of course, with her puppet, Lily, which was on the swing next to her. Alexa Bliss ended up talking about how Lily is her true best friend, and that she is the real devil and angel on her shoulders. Alexa Bliss ended up saying that we too can have our own Lily. So she ended up telling the viewers to look into our eyes and to concentrate and think dark thoughts, think twisted thoughts. Alexa Bliss went on to say that we all have them. And Alexa Bliss was like, now repeat after me. Lily, Lily, Lily. So she said Lily 3 times. I'm like, what is next? She's going to say Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. That was going through my head. I'm like, what's next? We're going to get Beetlejuice, 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 or Fiend, Fiend, Fiend. Well, Alexa Bliss is done with the Fiend, so. But Alexa Bliss ended up saying that she wants you to picture something peaceful. She's like, take a deep breath, inhale, exhale, and think about how peaceful it is. You know, we're seeing like this footage of fish and flowers, I think trees, and then the calm got interrupted by Lily, who just popped up out of nowhere. So Alexa Bliss was laughing. She was like, "Oh, did I get you?" She was like, "That was Lily's idea." So Alexa Bliss ended up saying, to be honest, she thinks Lily is getting a little restless, just hanging with her on the playground. So she ended up saying, it's time she went to play with the rest of everyone. So Alexa Bliss ended up staring ahead, and she ended up saying that Lily made me do it. Alexa Bliss started laughing. She was swinging on her swing. Of course, we got the close-up of Lily, and she was laughing, snarled at the camera, and that was that. Alexa Bliss, still, she's the best thing of Monday Night Raw, in my opinion. Just, I like how the way that they are portraying Alexa's character here. I think it's awesome. And then we had Charlotte versus Mandy Rose. Do I need to go over this match? You all know who won. If you said Mandy Rose, you're wrong. Charlotte won. Natural selection on Mandy Rose. Moving on. We had Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick ended up stopping Drew McIntyre backstage. And Kevin Patrick was asking McIntyre about the main event stipulation for WrestleMania Backlash. McIntyre ended up bringing up Strowman getting handouts. He ended up saying that Strowman is a monster. He's a monster complainer. So he ended up saying that Strowman is not going to screw up his title shot at WrestleMania Backlash. He ended up saying tonight ends one way, and that is with a Claymore. So that was that. So he went from Braun Strowman with stupid to McIntyre going, oh, he's just a monster complainer. Yeah, that's where we went. So then we had the main event. Braun Strowman versus Drew McIntyre. If Strowman wins the match, he gets added to the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania Backlash to make it a triple threat. So, but this match, I thought this was a okay match. Didn't love it, but I thought it was okay. Match started off with Strowman and McIntyre locking up. Strowman ended up shoving McIntyre off of him first. McIntyre then took control from behind. Strowman ended up running into an elbow in the corner from McIntyre. McIntyre ended up colliding with the big shoulder, and Strowman was just standing there. He was mocking McIntyre. Strowman then leveled McIntyre with a big shoulder of his own. So Strowman was talking some trash to McIntyre. Strowman ended up doing a forward roll, but McIntyre ended up taking control of the match. He ended up kicking his leg out, ended up dropping an elbow, and he was keeping Strowman down. He was focusing on Strowman's knee. McIntyre kept control, but got sent into the apron by Strowman. So we had Strowman end up rocking McIntyre over the top rope out to the floor. And then we had Bobby Lashley come out. So Lashley ended up coming out along with MVP. So Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Strowman end up whipping McIntyre into the corner. MVP and Bobby Lashley were watching from their chairs at ringside. Strowman was just working over McIntyre in the corner. And Strowman ended up launching McIntyre across the ring. McIntyre ended up hitting hard into the turnbuckles. So Strowman ended up going for the power slam, but McIntyre ended up sliding on his back and did a sleeper hold. Strowman ended up ramming McIntyre into the corner to break off the sleeper hold. Strowman then ended up running into the turnbuckles as McIntyre ended up moving out of the way. And then we saw McIntyre then launched Strowman over his head with a belly-to-belly. And that was crazy to see. So Strowman ended up blocking a future shock DDT. McIntyre ended up dropping Strowman for a 2 count. So MVP ended up getting up, and he was causing a distraction. McIntyre ended up charging at Strowman for a Claymore kick, but Strowman ended up catching McIntyre and delivered a powerbomb, which McIntyre then kicked out too. So McIntyre then ended up dropping Strowman with a Glasgow Kiss headbutt. He was waiting to hit the Claymore as the referee ended up checking on Strowman. And we saw McIntyre end up down a spine buster, but Strowman ended up getting up. So at the end of the match, we had Braun Strowman end up winning because we had T-Bar and Mace. They were on the apron. They were trying to interfere. McIntyre ended up turning back around, and Strowman ended up delivering the power slam, the run power slam to McIntyre. So Strowman ended up going for the pin, and there you go. Strowman ended up winning the match. So now he is added to the match at WrestleMania Backlash. So now it's officially a triple threat, where it's going to be Drew McIntyre versus Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley, WWE Championship on the line. So post-match, Lashley was shown standing on top of the announce table with the WWE Championship. Strowman took off his shirt, and we saw Strowman and Lashley staring down at each other. McIntyre got up, and him and Strowman met face to face in the ring. And then they turned and they stared at Bobby Lashley. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. Overall, this main event was okay, but having a triple threat for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania Backlash, it just made the match a whole lot worse, in my opinion. But overall, Monday Night Raw, awful show tonight. Absolutely boring show. But anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all Wednesday night for AEW Dynamite. So until then, I'll see you Wednesday night.